So I just watched Kipo and the Age of Wonderbeasts on Netflix, and I thought it was pretty good. It's an action cartoon that follows Kipo, this adorable-looking pink girl who comes from an underground civilization of humans and finds herself lost on the surface of a post-apocalyptic version of Earth as she tries to find her way home. Now, the premise by itself sounds pretty serious, but when I say post-apocalyptic, we're talking more in an Adventure Time sort of way, with the inhabitants of Earth being comprised of anthropomorphic, evolved versions of animals referred to as mutes, short for mutants. Didn't even make that connection until I googled it. The mutes look pretty non-threatening, but as it turns out, mutes actually have a very strong grudge against the humans, which plays a major role in Kipo's journey back home as she meets other surface-dwelling humans who have been trying to survive amongst the hostile creatures their whole lives. The group dynamic between the cast is one of the things that give the show life. The characters all play off of each other in a way that feels organic while also being endearing. There's some really good dialogue here as well. It's very fast-paced and witty without ever feeling forced or artificial as far as I can remember. I especially like Benson and his mute friend Dave, who have sort of a bromance going on to contrast with some of the tension between Kipo and Wolf. They feel like a combination of Finn and Jake from Adventure Time and Mordecai and Rigby from Regular Show. They start out as sort of tagging along with the two main characters and just commentating on what's happening before eventually becoming more oriented into the main group. This pretty much sums up the main group dynamic, as this is a story about a group of strangers slowly becoming friends, a pretty common trope that is nonetheless well executed and makes the cast overall feel more down-to-earth and organic. The character designs also give this cast a lot of likability, and the art style overall was a big reason as to why I decided to watch the show in the first place. I ended up watching the show after it appeared on the top of my Netflix page while me and a friend were trying to find something to watch, so my impressions were completely blind. The art style reminded me a lot of the old Ben 10 cartoon, and in general you'll find that there's some influence from that show here that I won't spoil. I was actually so curious about this I had to Google the creator and see if he was affiliated with Ben 10 at all, but it turns out the creators of the show, Radford Seacrest and Bill Wolkoff, had nothing to do with Ben 10. Radford was a storyboard artist for DreamWorks films like Megamind and Kung Fu Panda 2, while Bill was apparently a writer for shows like Once Upon a Time, Star Wars Rebels, Tron Uprising, and a couple of other projects. So this guy actually has a pretty strong portfolio as well as some history with action cartoons. Action is a very prevalent aspect of Kipo, and it's definitely another one of its strong points. Besides being well animated and choreographed, this show's unique soundtrack just gives these scenes a certain type of energy that's hard to explain. The music has a lot of hip-hop influence while still feeling unique. Again, it's hard to explain, but there's just a certain feeling I get while watching some of these moments, and it makes the show extremely captivating. I won't go into too much detail, but there are a lot of moments in the show that gave me a really similar vibe to that one scene from The Incredibles where they all reunite in the jungle. There's also the fact that all of the mutes have their own theme music / unique instrument. The mutes themselves are all generally a part of some community of their same species, with some just being wild animals. Think like the Candy Kingdom from Adventure Time. For the first 3 episodes, I got a little bit worried that the show was going to follow a really predictable formula for each episode revolving around the mutes, but fortunately this wasn't the case. The episodes were all generally very unique from one another and did a good job at playing around with the character dynamics and putting them in unique situations while still carrying the plot forward. The show is somewhat Monster of the Week-like, except the monsters in this case are the mutes the characters will have to interact with. The mutes generally lean more towards the comedic side despite their hostile nature. This show is, after all, a very lighthearted but plot-oriented action show. However, as the story unfolds and the main villain is introduced, it does begin to get more intense. The scale and severity of their adventure starts as just trying to help Kipo get back home and slowly turns into a grander mystery with a bigger picture becoming more apparent. While it does have its serious moments, it never drags on too long or sullies the overall tone, which is a good thing. It's somewhat campy, which normally isn't really my thing, but there was just something about the show that I couldn't help but love. The show takes itself just the right amount of serious, although this does mean that it is a bit lacking in substance. Like, as much as I enjoyed the ride, this was honestly one of those shows where the pacing, structure, dialogue, everything was on point, but there wasn't a whole lot going in regards to themes. Well, there are themes, there just isn't exactly a consistent theme tying everything together, at least nothing special, and emotionally was a bit lacking there as well. I kind of felt the same about a movie I saw recently, Uncut Gems. Great story overall, but not a lot of substance. Kipo obviously isn't meant to be super emotional other than a few moments of melodrama, so I can't exactly fault it for that. It's more of a personal preference. Other than that, however, it ticks a lot of boxes, and not just for me, but I imagine for a lot of people. I'm calling it now, this show is gonna be big. I can't wait for the day to come where I can link people this video and say I liked Kipo before it was cool. This is really just further proof that online streaming is gonna completely phase out cable television. You just can't tell plot-oriented stories like this on channels like Cartoon Network or Nickelodeon, because a lot of shows with overarching stories aren't exactly favored by network executives, as they have to take into account the fact that viewers might be just tuning in, but that isn't exactly a problem with online streaming. It's just evolution at this point. Streaming services fulfill a need that cable TV can't. In general, it feels like we're entering a renaissance of action cartoons here in the West. Now, if you don't want to get spoiled, I encourage that you click off now, but not without liking and subscribing first. Follow my Twitter account in the description as well. I'm not very active there, but if I can get some more followers, I would like to post there more often. Anyway, on to spoiler talk. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm very conflicted on how I feel about the plot twist of Kipo being part mute. On the one hand, it does segue into some interesting themes about tolerance that I thought was handled pretty tastefully, as well as providing some interesting insight. However, its execution felt a little off. Despite it being sort of a side mystery that's established somewhat early on, I couldn't help but feel that at times it sort of gave off an ex machina kind of vibe, with Kipo getting access to her powers at really convenient times. It also just in general doesn't really appeal to my personal tastes. I kind of would have preferred that Kipo just be a normal, average human without having special powers or being sort of a chosen one. With the plot they're setting up for Season 2, it kind of seems like they're doing a Harry Potter Boy Who Lived type thing, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. The main villain, Scarlemagne, plays a role in this, and him as well I'm kind of conflicted on. Like, he does a good job as a villain, I guess, but he just doesn't really strike any chords with me or really stand out as of yet. I'm hoping they surprise me in Season 2. Don't get me wrong, I don't think he's a bad villain, he's just okay as of right now. Besides all that though, I can honestly call myself a fan of this show, and I'm pretty excited for Season 2. Once again, please like and subscribe, I will be very happy if you do. Thanks for watching, take care.